And this Ponzi scheme had actually caused individuals to lose a total of over £100,000. So I was a victim of what you could say was essentially the largest Ponzi scheme in Milton Keynes. So Milton Keynes is a city where there's not really much going on. I don't actually think there have been any like crazy reports of Ponzi schemes in the area, and it is quite a good area. That I mean, for the past few years, I was living in London, and very recently I'd sort of moved back to Milton Keynes. And again, I don't take it for granted, or I take it for granted actually, not appreciating it as much as I should have. It seems like a quiet place, I mean, when you're not in the mix of everything, but what you can find is that there are some extremely peculiar individuals, and you don't want to get in the mix of them, you don't want to trust them with your money or anything of that sort. But that's what these story times are about, to actually raise awareness. So hopefully when you do come here, you're just going to be enjoying, I guess, all the little water parks, all the skydiving experiences they actually have to offer. So before going into the story time, a Ponzi scheme is a scheme whereby investors are promised really high returns with very little risk. And the catch is that Ponzi schemes are essentially fraudulent. So although you're promised really high returns, it's all getting a big fraud. It's just a big scam. And what actually happens is, for example, if I'm the first person to ever invest in the Ponzi scheme, let's say I invest £10,000, and then person two comes in and they invest £15,000. Let's say, for example, I was promised a 50% return on my investment being £10,000. I would then have a profit of 5, which would then be given to me, but that would actually be person's two money, and I'd be paid out person's two money. I would leave the Ponzi scheme, that's me and my investment. Person two would then be left with nothing. Essentially, I'm just being paid their investment. And I guess the person on the other end who actually invented the scheme may then take a little fee. So they may take a few hundred or a few thousand. And then person three may come on and then put in £20,000. And then that would be paid, or a portion of that would then be paid to person two. Person two would leave the scheme. Person three would then be left with nothing. And this is essentially what had happened in Milton Keynes. So the story actually starts with, I guess, 3 main individuals who I guess were the people who kind of set up the entire scheme. I'll give them all, I guess, little code names. So the first one will be Paddy. So Paddy was, I guess, the whole sort of mastermind guy behind setting up the entire scheme. I'm not actually too sure to date what his actual intentions were. Again, this is all alleged. With us, I guess, the people who were the victims of the Ponzi scheme, we're not really known to sort of deal with situations and report them to the police. And so us handling situations is more sort of hands-on. And I'd actually dealt with situations very recently whereby I'd sold something with very, very high value, and the person had then somehow gotten their money back, and so I just sort of taken a visit and gone to actually see them to see what was up and sort of get the item back. And the police came down, the police were involved, etc., etc. And it's like, it's just the way we handle situations. We've never sort of gone through the proper way of handling situations, going to court, etc., etc. And so this situation was very similar. But anyway, back onto, I guess, the 3 main characters in this. You've got Paddy, again, the mastermind who'd sort of set up the entire scheme, not too sure what his intentions were. But then we also have Paddy's father. So what you'll find throughout the story is that as soon as anyone had tried to get their money back, they would somehow find themselves getting in contact with Paddy's father, who would then lead them on to, I guess, the third character, which would be the lawyer. And the lawyer, the very dodgy and peculiar lawyer, we will call Leonard. I just read his name, so we'll call him Leonard. And what you'd find with Leonard is that whenever you've gone to contact Leonard and then sort of spoken about it publicly, you'd then be hit with sort of, I guess you'd sort of be threatened that you'd never get your money back, etc., etc. I'll put up a screenshot of one of the emails here. And so whenever you'd sort of gone through and sort of let people know that, look, there's a lawyer involved, you're kind of thinking in your head, okay, cool, this could get resolved, but then slowly you start getting threats like you'll never be able to sort of get your investment back or the money that you'd put into Paddy back, and it'd just be like a little rabbit hole that you'd never really get yourself out of, and you'd essentially just have lost money. So starting from the very beginning, obviously I can only really explain from my point of view, and bear in mind that nobody has actually been convicted of any crimes, so I guess just take this story with a pinch of salt. However, cool. Starting out, I was in London. I've been living in London now for, I guess, past few years. And Paddy reaches out to me, essentially just asking for what seems to be a couple hundred. And bear in mind, I have given Paddy money before, and I've actually been paid back with interest. I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't, but I was. I was paid back my money and more. And so I'd given him money in the past, and so I was willing to do it again. Essentially, I think it was something to do with university. I think Paddy was meant to be receiving university money, or apparently meant to be receiving university money. And so I'd given him a few hundred, which then he requested a few thousand, which again I'd given again. And then I guess a couple more thousand after that, which then led to actually a 5-figure sum. And it wasn't so bad. I mean, he'd been lent out the money for a few months now. We were in regular contact. And he'd actually paid back a fair chunk of it. I have to say, I'm not going to say he didn't. But this is then where things start to get sketchy. So after sort of receiving, I guess, regular payments, again, very minimal, what actually happened was I'd reached out to a friend. That went to a similar uni to Taddy, only because it was months after I'd actually given him the money that he then started to pay it back. And the payments were irregular, very small amounts, and I did sort of have concerns about me ever receiving my entire amount of money back just because of how small the actual repayments were. And so I'd reached out to a friend who went to a similar uni to, well, the exact same university to Taddy, just to, I guess, have a word. And he did. And what I'd actually found out was that one of my friends' friend that I'd consider a brother, actually, one of the friends that actually lived at his uni accommodation with him, was actually owed money from Taddy as well, which was concerning. But again, for someone to be in a situation where they really need money, they borrowed, I guess, 5 figures from myself, to then reach out to other people, it seemed understandable at the time. And so I'd sort of asked, okay, cool, what was the story? Was it the exact same story as mine? He needed money for university. It wasn't the same story. The story that Taddy had actually told my friend's friend was that he was running some investment with myself, and he would actually get quite a good return on his money. So he said that he was trading with me. He needed the money for investment money, and we would apparently trade that money together, which most definitely was not the case. I don't handle clients' money. I don't work on investments. Nothing of that sort. I mean, I trade by myself for myself. I invest by myself for myself, and that's where it kind of starts and stops. And I guess even for people to reach out to me just for confirmation, I don't often reply to messages. So I may have actually had a message from my friend's friend, essentially, sort of saying, oh, is this true? And I may have just not even opened it, which is completely understandable. But then to say that I'm running an investment alongside Paddy is just extremely ridiculous, because that most definitely was not the case. But even still, I guess I was okay with it, just because, again, he could have been in need. I've lent money before, and so I wasn't really too bothered, in essence. And I knew that I'd most likely get paid more out than what I'd given him, so I was fine. I'd heard that obviously he was owed for a long time as well, very similar to myself. Again, I didn't really care too much, but then I kind of had thoughts as to, okay, cool, was Paddy borrowing money from my friend's friend just to maybe start to pay back myself? That was kind of my concern, and I wasn't too sure. And this is kind of where the Ponzi scheme kind of thing kicks in. Not only that, I guess I'd sort of started to hear from other people that they were also sort of, they'd loaned money to Paddy, but for different things. I'd heard some because they were told it was some like fraud thing that was going on, and that they would get a significant return on their money. Paddy was running some fraud scheme apparently, and they would get money back from that. There was also things such as, again, investments, and a number of different cases. In some, he just said that he was in a large 5-figure debt, which seemed to sort of mirror the 5-figure capital that I'd given him. And I'd actually then started to discover that there were hundreds of people that had been owed. And I guess I'll just sort of play some screenshots of some messages, but there were honestly hundreds. And when I discovered this, the concern really started to build up, because at first I sort of had concerns that my friend's money that was being borrowed was then being used to pay back myself. But then after hearing hundreds of other people then also being in debt, it was extremely concerning. And I think even it got to a point where even family members of Paddy had been owed money, and the sheer number of people was honestly just ridiculous. And the payments had become very inconsistent to myself. Although I was being paid back at the start, they then started to slow down and even just halt. And so what I'd done was sort of take it upon myself to again reach out to my friend and just be like, is there anything that we can do about this? Again, we don't really want to use like violence or anything of that sort. It's more just, is there anyone that could reach out, we could reach out to? Is he looking for a job? Is there anything that he's actively doing to actually pay us back? And there was nothing. The only thing that we kind of done was reach out to the family member who was owed, and we were actually able to get in contact with Paddy's father. And when we reached out to Paddy's father, it was kind of like he'd not been surprised to the fact that we told him that his son was in 5-figure debts. It didn't really seem shocking to him at all. Giving him a call, wasn't really much said. Sent him a few messages on WhatsApp, and he was very blunt to the fact that it was like, okay, cool, do you have proof? Sent him proof, and then we'd had nothing. And I'd been very consistent with the messages. And then what happened was even worse, to be fair. I then heard that there was a lawyer getting involved. And me hearing that there's a lawyer getting involved, I'm kind of excited in the sense that I'd known that I'd done nothing wrong. I simply just lent out money with the expectation of getting it back, and then realized that there was hundreds of other people owed money at the same time, all with their own different stories, different things they'd been told from Paddy, some fraud, some investment, some he'd been in a 5-figure debt, which was probably the only true story. And essentially I'd sent over the proof to the lawyer who we are calling Leonard. Leonard, it does actually seem to be like a legit lawyer, works in a, I guess, very small law firm, solicitor firm, I'm not really too sure what it is. But Leonard was a strange character. So essentially I'd sent all the proof to Leonard, and what I'd got back was very surprising. Sort of said that he would take a few days to reconcile it to bank statements. He'd sort of tried to disprove certain figures. It was more like the guilty until proven innocent type of thing. And I just didn't really like his vibe at all. And then what had happened was I'd sort of put on social media, look, there's a lawyer involved. This is looking promising for everyone looking to actually get their money back. This information was obviously sent over to Leonard, and Leonard had then been like, if you keep posting on social media and keep informing of others that there's a lawyer involved, something along the lines of you just won't essentially get your money back, which kind of seems sketchy to the fact that lawyers are meant to help people. And for a lawyer kind of saying, if you tell people about what's going on, you may not get your money back, is extremely concerning, because it's like, okay, cool, what if I have, I guess, all the evidence in the world, get all of these hundreds of people to email you, that means that I won't get my 5 figures back? Okay, cool, let me kind of not. And in the end result, again, I didn't actually get my money back. Apparently I wasn't able to prove certain transactions, and I just didn't get my money back. I did send it to multiple accounts, so this is what was weird. Taddy did actually request the money to go into multiple accounts. So I guess that was the issue, kind of played it smart in that sense. And it was kind of like everyone that had tried to go through the rabbit hole of going from Paddy to Paddy's father to Leonard, the lawyer, I'm trying to get all the names correct, would kind of just find themselves in the loophole. And then obviously people have popped up from different cities. I guess Paddy would kind of just go from city to city, build like, I guess, really meaningful connections, and then abuse them by sort of getting them onto the Ponzi scheme. And it was really a disgusting outlook, to be fair. But again, there are people like this, and we do need to sort of raise awareness. Even in the Forex game, it's kind of like, give me £100, I'll flip it to 1,000. Complete crap. It's not going to happen, in all honesty. And then again, I guess after sort of everyone kind of knew that it was kind of like a Ponzi scheme type thing that was going on, there was, I guess, physical abuse inflicted on Paddy, verbal abuse, because obviously people realizing that they've now out of pocket thousands, tens of thousands, etc. And even I'd been informed that, oh, you're the guy that's trying to kind of help everyone out. I've got my own story too, and so I'd been told stories whereby, Paddy'd openly admitted that he was in a 5-figure debt, asked people for some of the money, and for somebody that's already in a 5-figure debt, they would then go on to give him more money to clear that 5-figure debt and then pay their money back too, which probably is unlikely, I would assume. But nevertheless, I guess just very clean-hearted people just taken advantage of, really, all victims of one very big Ponzi scheme. It's completely disgusting. And what had happened very recently was I'd sort of reached out to everyone and been like, cool, should I make a video? Should I raise awareness about what's been going on with Paddy? And I'd received threats. So one of Paddy's cousin had then sort of threatened me, said that they know me very well, which is very concerning. And then obviously threatened me that when they see me, it's going to be peak apparently. And I'm sort of in the same office every day. A lot of people who live in Milton Keynes will know of the office where it is. Very, very nice office, very well-known office. And nothing has actually happened as of yet. So I kind of just want to say to people that if, I guess, for whatever reason you are receiving, I guess, any threats or anything of that sort when trying to get your actual money back, please just ignore them. They are just threats at that, nothing too crazy. You will be fine. You will hopefully actually be able to get your investment back, and that's what I hope for everyone, to just get their money back. And for Paddy to maybe just admit as to what his intentions actually were with everyone's money. Again, if you do feel like that you can't get your money back for whatever reason, I will leave a link in the description below where you can either create a report or add to an existing report on Paddy and hopefully actually find a way to get your money back. So again, just follow the links in the description below and you guys should be okay. This video isn't any type of exposed video on Paddy or his dodgy father or dodgy lawyer, but what this is just to raise awareness for anyone that may have been scammed, and again, just share around the video of anyone that you know may potentially be a victim, etc., etc., of the crime, because that is most definitely what it is. Then again, just share the video out of them, let them know that they can get their money back. They are actually entitled to their money. They shouldn't be allowed to go, and I know Paddy has recently purchased himself a nice Audi, etc., etc., with a lot of our money. However, this video again is just to raise awareness and not really expose him for what he'd done, because he could really be in need of this capital. But I'm a bit unsure, I guess, with the dodgy father, the dodgy lawyers, all the threats from it's just a really dodgy family. But no doubt they're all eating, everyone's trying to get it in their own way. For some people it is the scamming lifestyle, but I guess on the end result there are victims to it. And I just hope that everyone can get their money back, to be fair, and invest in stocks, go watch my other videos and learn how to make 6 figures in under a year or whatever. But that is the end of the video, you guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope the awareness has been raised, and I hope for everyone to actually get their money back, and for Paddy to, I guess, openly admit what has happened, even if he doesn't, because it's kind of like awkward to now say, look, I've sort of scammed everyone for this reason. It probably isn't the best, but mainly for everyone to actually get their money back. I don't wish to really expose anyone for anything that they haven't been convicted of, because there could be sort of a meaningful explanation as to why. But if you guys want more story times, let me know. I do have a whole bunch of people telling me they're gonna invest with me. I've actually cut off some really close friends for the same reason, but I don't think I'll make a story time about it, just because I do owe it to them for some of my success. But there's honestly tons of stories we can go about, and again, some of them are exciting, some of them are kind of boring, more finance related, but if they are more exciting and more personal, then I'll definitely make them on a new channel, along with, I guess, personal vlogs, etc., etc. But do let me know in the description below or comments below, and I'll most definitely make them. But take care, you guys.